Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. My name is Corrina. My podcast is the Knitting Equestrian Nomad. I'm in the barn right now. I'm going to do some gardening today. I've already done some knitting, and I will have a finished object for you. I think this is episode 39. It could be episode 40. Right now, I'm just gonna I just turned the horses out. I'm going to finish filling hay bags and getting grain ready for dinner, their dinner. I'm planning on, let me see if I can do this, using possibly that palette for gardening. And then there is this tub of baling twine that I'm gonna try some vertical gardening. I am also going to show you in the other direction. I'll turn the camera around and talk about a bed I'm going to establish out of a 2-year-old covered manure pile and possibly a spot for a greenhouse, maybe? We'll see. So I have some straw bales or maybe old hay bales up in the loft. So I'm thinking about maybe establishing a straw bale, a couple straw bale, what do you call them, beds? I'm not sure. I've been getting a lot of inspiration from the Grow Veg podcast, which there will be a link in the show notes below, and also the No Dig, Charles Dowding. They are both British podcasts that have more or less the same climate. I would actually say similar to what I have here in the Pacific Northwest, on the west side of the Cascade Mountain Range and up in the northern latitude of the United States. So I'm gonna get to it and take you on my way today. So welcome, and I'll do the knitting content later. All right, see you soon. Okay, this is the gardening project I mentioned. So I'm standing on a 2.5-year-old manure pile that has been covered in black plastic here. So what I'm planning to do is maybe just level this out a little bit and plant basically a vegetable garden here. Not sure what I'm going to plant yet. It gets sun. This is south facing. There's a lot of trees over there that may cause some shading, but in general, in the summertime, the sun is very high, so it clears the treetops. So kind of what my plan is to keep rotating these manure piles. So that manure pile right there is the one I'm building. This one has been built and then composted and then spread or taken up to the front for compost. And then the one beyond that, it kind of goes down, disappears down the hill a little bit. That is last year's manure pile that is just aging. So I could potentially rotate these into garden beds. As you can see here, I have borrowed from this pile quite a lot. Some friends got a pickup load of this last summer, and then I have used it myself in my own garden bed. So, and I will probably maybe continue to do that, maybe just pick that up. That's probably 2 more wagon loads for me, and that'll probably be sufficient. If I run out of room for manure storage, I can keep going in that direction and just keep covering piles. So you can really see the difference. This broken down soil, this is a very active worm bed. So tons of little red wrigglers in there. And then versus this one, which still has, you can see the formed manure balls. So that's kind of my plan. I'm also thinking, because this is a sunny spot, that a small greenhouse could go right there. I would have to leave myself a path to access the manure piles, but I think that would be easy enough. I'm a little concerned about that tree right there, which may shade, but I started cutting off some branches, and I may continue to do that. Those branches actually make good stakes, garden stakes. This is why I call this the junkyard garden, is because there is all sorts of junk from the barn that I can use for gardening. So I'll leave you with that right now and finish my barn chores and start raking. Pardon the lawnmower noise in the background. So what I've done here is I transplanted all my little onion seedlings that I had started indoors in the winter, and I planted them under my apple tree. So this section here, you can see those little baby onions, are Tropea, Tropea. Got these seeds from Kim, and they go all the way to here. Here comes a vehicle. So this is allowed Ford pickup. This is Bianca DiMaggio. This is a pretty short section here, and then spring onions go all the way around back to the Tropea long day onions, and I have planted them under this apple tree. And the reason for that is I just learned this morning on, I think it was Grow Veg, that if you plant onions or any allium like garlic, something else under your apple trees, it'll prevent deer from getting them. And if you look at our arborvitaes, you can see how they are nicely trimmed up to about there, which is about the height of where deer can reach. So that's what that is all about. I am going to plant seeds under this apple tree. This is a Gravenstein. So I'm going to do that next. Have a lot of seeds, onion seeds. And I can't remember what this apple tree is. It's a variety I'd not heard of before. I'm going to say it's a golden something or another, but I honestly don't remember. So anyway, I'm going to get to it. I planted and mulched that old compost pile, the one that's 2 years old. So directly in front of me is bok choy, and then cauliflower and cabbage. We'll go around the tree, and then we have some giant red celery, some mizuna. So I kind of started at the top and then sowed seed in, I guess, kind of a wedge shape. And then spinach. The spinach seed's old, so I don't know what to expect. I also planted some of these early girl watermelon. It might be a little too early, but I'll find out. Some 1,000 head kale. Down this side, this is the east-facing side, so we were just on the north side. Some Chinese broccoli. These are plants I expect to grow pretty easily. Fennel, which is an herb. It also grows a bulb. And I can't remember what that little plastic bag is. So I'm going around the front. This is the south side. And then coming back to the start where I started with the bok choy. Oh, okay, this is summer squash, so that's why I planted it on this side. So I'm thinking that the watermelon and the summer squash will get the most sun exposure here. Everything else I kind of planted more on the shady side and down the flanks of this mound. So we'll see what happens. Hi there. Well, welcome to the final segment of episode 28 of my podcast. Sorry, I was getting myself adjusted. So I took you through the gardening part of my podcast. If you skipped that part, my name is Corrina, and I live in the very northwest corner of the United States in the Pacific Northwest with my partner and our 2 kitties and my 2 horses. Well, actually, I have a third now, 3 horses. So 2 are Mustangs that I adopted from the Wild Horse Adoption Program from the Bureau of Land Management. There's a link in my show notes if you are interested. And then I recently took on a foster horse that came from a rescue situation. He and 27 total horses from the same place were in a starvation situation, and he spent all fall and winter rehabilitating at a reputable rescue, and then there was a call out for foster homes, and I fostered him. So my partner's home, so I need to shut the door, so just give me a moment while I do that. Okay, I'm back. So, what is this thing? What is this thing? This is a finished object. This is the Stephen West Exploration Station shawl. So it started up here somewhere in this little tiny nubbin right here, and then this series of wedges that involved some very easy short rows. I made a mistake the first time and didn't read the directions, but then I was like, oh well, I was trying to make it way too hard. Calls for 4 colors of fingering weight. I don't remember. The skeins that I got were slightly under what his recommended weight, so I ended up having quite a lot of leftover yarn because I dipped into the second skein on most of the colors. I used Knit Picks Gloss. So this dark magenta color is Plume. This is lavender and gray striping. The lavender is, I'm not remembering the lavender, but the gray is Robot, and then this golden color is called Harvest. Yeah, and so each section, so there's even the brioche section, which was really fun. That was my first successful brioche. And then this section, I don't know what this is called, what this stitch pattern's called, but that was really fun. And then the stripey, and then all the magenta in between. So my first Stephen West project, I really enjoyed it, highly recommended it. This was for a knit along that Knit All the Yarn was hosting, or is hosting. Started on, I'm going to say March 1st, and I think we have until the end of May to finish. Well, this was just so much fun to knit. The end was really long. I think there's over 400 stitches at the end, and it was a I-card bind off, so it felt like it took forever. But I finished it this morning, woven all the ends. It's not blocked. I don't know that I will block it. I typically don't block my shawls. So anyway, that's the knitting part. So what else do I have on my needles? So works in progress. I have a sock that I'm still working on. This is a Hermione sock. I think this is the at least 3rd time I've tried to knit it until I figured out my gauge. So this is hand-dyed yarn from Skein and Tipple on Woodby Island, and you can see that I have made the heel turn. This came as a little set. Hermione sock is the pattern's by Erica Leuder, I think. Yeah, neat pattern. I enjoy pattern socks. And then I'm on the foot. So I think this sock is going to fit me pretty well. So yeah, I've been knitting. It's a 4-row repeat, and I've been trying to knit like 8 rows a day. So what else? Said I was inspired by brioche, so I started a brioche hat for my partner Randy, and this is very simple. These 2 colors are from sweaters that leftover yarn from sweaters that I made him. So it's a very stretchy cast on. So it starts, I guess you would call it bottom up. And yeah, so this is going pretty well. So a green and brown sweater. The green sweater was a Tin Can Knits. The flax, I think it was. And then the brown On this side was a pattern I found in, I probably have the magazine down here. I think it was a Rowan magazine. Yep, it was a Rowan magazine, and it was from, oh gosh, 2006, I think. So it might be the San Moritz sweater. So it's kind of a neat zigzag pattern. So yeah, probably, this is going pretty fast. This is only a couple days worth of knitting on here. So I kind of think that I will have this done within a couple weeks. So what else am I knitting? The shawl is making me very warm. So even though I love it, I'm gonna have to take it off. So, pardon me, here, maybe I could show it a little better. So yeah, so start it, this is where it started. It's right here, this little wedge here, and then the lavender, gold, and then a stripe of, in between each of the wedges is a stripe of that magenta, or the plume color, Knit Picks Gloss, Robot, and so on and so forth. The Brioche is in the lavender and the harvest. Here's the other side, very pretty. Yeah, so this is, let's see, show this whole thing. Kind of a lacy pattern in this section here. Yeah, it was really easy knitting and super fun. And what else do I have that's almost done? I am on the second sleeve of my Crossvine sweater. I had to order another skein of yarn. So here's the cuff, twisted rib cuff. And I have this much yarn left, so hopefully that should be enough. And hopefully enough to finish the neckline and sew it all together. Here's the finished sleeve. I left the body downstairs, but I'll show that as a finished object. So yeah, here's the set-in sleeves. Yeah, and this is a Berroco pattern, free Berroco pattern. Yeah, I think I'm really gonna like this. So the piece together sweaters, they don't bother me as much as they used to once I realized, I think it was Marie Wallen. I saw an interview with Marie Wallen who said, just crochet them together. I was like, oh, well, that seems really easy. A lot simpler than using a needle and yarn. So that's what I'm gonna do. Well, that is all the knitting, and that's only like 10 minutes worth of stuff to report. I'm gonna cast on another sweater. It's another Berroco sweater out of Arno yarn. The black is the main color, and it's a colorwork yoke, and the yoke is in, the contrast color is rose, so that's going to be very pretty. And then I'm going to do another knit along. I can't remember, it might be the Crazy Sock Lady who is hosting it, and I think that starts in May, so I need to get the Hermione socks off my needles. So what else is going on? I've been working with Braggy as far as getting him on the path to accepting the saddle. It's going to be a long journey with him. He's kind of a quirky horse. He's very sensitive, so he's very sensitive to new things around him. So right now we're just practicing, just putting, and I'm working with a trainer, just putting things on his back and taking him off and like bouncing a big rubber ball near him and just, you know, hopefully getting him curious about stuff like that. So that's how that is working. Odin, I really just want to take him out riding one of these days. He's such a good horse. Sparrow, he has a lot of issues. He's an older horse. He has arthritis, so it's hard for him to deal with the farrier. I think he's gotten away with a lot of things in his life because he's really hard to deworm and stuff like that. My farrier did it, so bless her heart, she's just really good at stuff like that. But she finally convinced him that it was going to be okay. So I may need her or my trainer to do Braggy because he's very similar. He's just doesn't like anything near his muzzle. I mean, he's accepting my fingers and stuff like that in his muzzle and his mouth and stuff like that. But anytime I get the dewormer tube, then it's like, oh my God, that's different. So in order to get it done, I may just have to have my trainer do it and keep practicing what needs to be done. So take a drink of water. What I'm reading Dinners with Ruth by NPR journalist Nina Totenberg, and Ruth is, of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So that's a really well-written book, and I'm very much enjoying it. So checked it out of the library and reading it on my Kindle. Other than that, I'm watching a lot of podcasts, doing the gardening, as you can see from the earlier segments. So I hope you enjoyed this format, and yeah, it's the last segment before the knitting. I was showing the mound garden that it's on a 2-year-old manure pile that's been under cover, under black plastic. So I planted all that. That one's going to be a kind of survive on your own garden. I don't plan on watering it. Typically what happens is I get at least one squash plant out of a manure garden. It's just a volunteer from like a piece of squash or a old squash that didn't get eaten. I just toss it out there, and it grows the next year. So that's kind of what gave me the idea, plus the German mound gardening, which I have a link in my show notes. That is also part of it. Part of the inspiration, just piling up a mound and planting it. So we'll see how it goes. I do have water out in the barn, but like I said, there's just plenty of moisture in that old pile, and it's raining right now, so it's kind of a perfect day to plant. And yeah, we'll just go on a journey of discovery together. So thanks for watching. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate it. And if you're new, welcome. And I hope you stay for future episodes. So have a nice couple weeks, and I'll see you next time. Bye.